So climate change can have a huge impact on food supply around the world, and Singapore is particularly vulnerable to fluctuations or changes in supply. Over 90% of the food that we eat is imported, but the Agri-Food and Veterinary Authority, or AVA, wants to raise Singapore's self-sufficiency levels. So let's look at the numbers. Local farms here produce 26% of our eggs. AVA hopes to raise this to 30%. For leafy vegetables, from the current 8% to 10%. And currently, local farms produce 8% of the fish we eat, and the target is for this to be brought up to 15%. Currently, our top 3 overseas sources of vegetables are Malaysia, China, and Australia. And our top 3 overseas sources of fruit: Malaysia, China, and the US. And so to help us to understand and discuss our food resilience strategy is Melvin Chow from the Agri-Food and Veterinary Authority. So Melvin, thank you for coming in today. So we import a lot of our food, so we're very vulnerable to changes in food supply around the world. The Economist Intelligence Unit, its latest Global Food Security Index, it ranks Singapore as the first in Asia. So that's a good result. What's our strategy when it comes to food diversification?
When it comes to food security, actually, we employ a multi-pronged approach. Diversification is one of our core strategies. So is local farming as well as stockpiling.
Okay. Climate change, as you mentioned earlier, can have a huge impact on global food supply, but are we well prepared in the event of price volatility?
I think price volatility is something that is unavoidable. It's a global phenomenon. However, when it comes to food supply, we can have some of these strategies to actually minimize or mitigate the food supply disruption.
For example, perhaps one example of a strategy?
Yep, like diversification is one strategy. Diversification is actually putting our eggs in several baskets. So we minimize our risk in the process. So what we do is actually to engage the importers and find out get feedback from them where to import from. Some of the considerations will be proximity. Are we already diversified from this current source? And also, more importantly, is it workable in terms of price?
Okay, so when you talk about diversification, very important. But we're looking at existing sources, for example, vegetables. We get most of it from Malaysia and China. But how do you decide where else we should look to get other fruit?
Yeah. I think definitely, first of all, the country must produce that food, and of course, the price will be an important consideration. So proximity is also a consideration, because if it's close to Singapore, then you will actually reduce your carbon footprints. So other than that, because when it comes to leafy vegetables, it depends on the diet. Not everybody actually eats leafy vegetables throughout the world. So it's also, we have an Asian diet, and some of the leafy vegetables are only available in our region.
In certain
and
places.
So that actually determines where we actually can diversify our sources too.
Okay, so how can we go one step further, perhaps guarantee first right of purchase when it comes to a supply crunch?
Yeah. Actually, it's really securing food at source. What it really means is that if we could have some of our importers actually having farms at the places where we're actually importing from, and that will mean that we'll have this first right of purchase, because in the event of a supply disruption, we can actually depend on some of these farms locally, own guys actually growing over there, and then importing from them. So that is pretty important in terms of securing food at source.
So how far do you think we have come in terms of our local agricultural sector?
Well, I think we have covered some good grounds. Food Fund has actually helped in this process. We have actually dispersed about 20 million thus far, helping 71 companies and 141 projects in total. We have some positive outcome. I think we have about increased 550 tons of fish and about 350 tons of leafy vegetables. We have some positive examples as well from the egg farms. Some of the egg farms, one particular egg farm actually has reduced manpower by 80% and reduced the amount of time needed to clean the net cages, the chicken cages by 30%. So that is very important in view of this supply crunch in terms of manpower.
All right. Thank you very much, Melvin, for coming in.
Thank you.
And that was Melvin telling us more about the AVA's plans to ensure Singapore's food security.